I stood motionless behind the curtain, the kettle whistling faintly in the kitchen as laughter echoed outside my window. The autumn air carried my daughter-in-law's voice, sharp and careless. "It's honestly embarrassing to be seen with her in that thing." My son's chuckle followed, louder, crueler, and not once did he defend me. Moments later, my phone buzzed with the proof. A photo of my silver sedan mocked for strangers' amusement, captioned with hashtags that burned hotter than the tea I never poured. After decades of sacrifice, after raising him through every storm, after holding this family together with both hands, I was reduced to a punchline. Before we begin, may I ask, where in this big, beautiful world are you listening from? It's always a quiet honor to know who's sharing this space. Drop it in the comments and don't forget to subscribe. Linda Carpenter had just set the kettle on when she heard it. The sharp click of a car door and the too loud laughter that followed. She didn't need to look through the front window to recognize the voices. "I swear it looks like it crawled out of a junkyard." Tina's voice rang across the driveway, cutting clear through the autumn air. Brian's chuckle followed. "I told you. Babe, she won't give up that bucket unless it falls apart under her." Tina lowered her voice, but not enough. "It's honestly embarrassing to be seen with her in that thing. I mean, we've got the Escalade now." She pulls up in that '98 funeral wagon like we're filming a sad indie movie. Brian laughed harder this time. Too loud, too cruel. Linda stood behind the kitchen curtain, still as a photograph. Her hands trembled just slightly, not with surprise. No, she'd always known Tina didn't approve of much, but with the slow burn realization that her son didn't care enough to stop it. Then came the digital sting. A notification pinged on her phone from Facebook. Tina Carpenter posted a photo. Linda tapped it open with quiet dread. The photo showed her silver sedan parked beside the gleaming black SUV in the driveway. The caption read, "From Jurassic Park to Jurassic Parking Lot, pray for us." Family cars. 112 likes in 2 hours. A few laughing emojis, a couple of comments about boomer mobiles. Someone even tagged a meme about dial-up internet. Linda set the phone down without a word. She didn't cry, didn't stomp. She simply walked to the hall closet, pulled out a yellow plastic bucket, a sponge, and the bottle of lemon-scented car wash she always kept on the shelf behind the vacuum. The sun had started to lower itself lazily behind the Denver skyline as she stepped outside. Leaves crunched under her soft-soled shoes. Her fingers dipped into the soapy water and she began to scrub. The old sedan sat there like a loyal dog, quiet, unfashionable, but always waiting for her. Every swipe of the sponge felt like a small act of defiance. The world could mock, but she would shine her car until the last bolt refused to gleam. Across the street, a neighbor's garage door yawned open. Someone raised a hand in a lazy wave. Linda nodded back but kept scrubbing, working the sponge into the curved fenders like muscle memory. Her phone rang from the porch table. She glanced at the screen. Gloria. "Hey," Linda answered, trying to sound casual. "You all right?" Gloria's voice was brisk, but there was concern underneath. "Saw that post. Tina's got all the grace of a frying pan to the face." Linda chuckled. Just once, but her voice cracked at the end. "It's nothing." There was silence on the other end, then Gloria spoke softer. "Linz. Don't nothing me. Your hands shake when you lie. I've seen it since '83. Linda blinked away the sting behind her eyes. "Well, maybe they're right," she said, wringing out the sponge. "Maybe it's time I got something newer." "Oh, honey, you don't need a new car. You need a new son," Gloria muttered. Linda snorted, then quickly wiped at her face with the back of her wet wrist. "Don't say that." "I will. I'll say worse if you let me." The wind picked up, rustling the red and gold leaves around her feet. Linda looked at her car. Clean now. shimmering faintly in the fading light. Her reflection stared back from the hood. Tired, yes, but firm. I should go. Water's getting cold, Linda said. All right, Gloria said gently. But don't let them make you small. You've never been small a day in your life. Linda hung up. She picked up the hose, rinsed the suds from the sedan's tired frame, and stood back. Her jaw tightened, setting itself like stone. She walked up the steps, bucket in hand, and paused at the top. Her eyes drifted to the garage, that garage, and then down to her phone again. A smile tugged at the corner of her mouth, but it wasn't warm. It was steel. Linda sat at the kitchen table long after the dishes were done, her fingers absently tracing the rim of her tea mug. The porch light hummed behind her. Outside, the night settled over Denver like a heavy coat. Quiet, but not kind. The manila folder sat in front of her now, the word property garage neatly typed on the tab in her own handwriting years ago. She hadn't opened it since Brian first brought the idea up, when he'd said she could use some help getting the paperwork in order. He was still her boy then, still polite, still pretending to care. Her hands moved slowly, deliberately, as she unhooked the metal prongs and slid out the top sheet. The words, warranty deed, stared back at her in crisp black ink. She scanned the page, and there it was, Brian J. Carpenter, listed right beneath her name. Her thumb rested on the line, cold and unmoving. For a long time, she just looked at it, heart tightening like a slowly turned wrench. Back then, it had seemed harmless. He'd offered to split the deed so she'd have backup if something happened. He used that same voice he'd had in high school when he wanted extra gas money. Too nice, too fast. She was grieving her husband at the time, juggling medical bills, working extra hours at the school. She hadn't thought twice. Now she was thinking twice, and a third time, and a fourth. Linda stood and crossed to the living room bookshelf. Behind old photo albums and PTA yearbooks, she pulled out a black Rolodex. It was dusty, relic-like, but she never trusted digital for the important people. She flipped to Kent, Harold. His card was yellowed around the edges, the ink faded but readable. Harold R. Kent, Esker Denver Estate and Property Law. Practical, precise, personal. She smiled faintly. Harold always was a little too proud of that tagline. She punched the number into her phone and waited, bracing for voicemail. But the line clicked on the second ring. Linda Carpenter, a warm baritone answered. Haven't heard that name in a while. Harold, she said, letting the weight of her voice carry more than just her name. I need to ask you something about a deed. He paused, then shifted instantly into lawyer mode. Talk to me. I'm looking at the garage title from 2009. Brian's listed on it. Back then, he said it'd be smart, just in case. But I'm wondering if I can change that now. Let me guess, Harold said. He's suddenly very interested in his share. Not yet, she said, and her voice cooled. But I think he's about to be. There was a chuckle on the other end, dry and familiar. You've always been sharper than you let on. She didn't answer that. Just stared down at the paper, fingers tightening around the edge. Harold continued. It depends how the deed was structured. But if both your names are on it, and you're the original grantor, there's a strong chance you can file a quitclaim. You'd effectively remove him from the title. Quick, quiet, legal. Would he have to sign anything? She asked. Nope. Not if you're the one granting the full interest and his name was added as a non-exclusive co-owner. I'd have to look at it, but you probably hold primary control. People do it all the time to clean up old deeds. Linda exhaled. Not relief, just confirmation. I'll bring it to you tomorrow. Good, I'll have coffee, strong and black, like my opinions. She smiled. Thanks, Harold. Anything for you, Linz. You always backed the teachers when the board wouldn't. Time to return the favor. She hung up and stared out the kitchen window, the garage barely visible under the weak halo of the motion light. Her car sat in front of it, windshield now spotless, body gleaming in the dark. A long silence stretched. Then, with slow certainty, she turned the deed face down and smoothed her palm over the manila folder like sealing something shut. The smell of warm cinnamon hit Linda the second she pushed through the door of Gloria's Rise and Shine bakery. That familiar blend of sugar, yeast, and something soothing she could never quite name. The bell overhead gave its soft jingle, and Gloria didn't even look up from the dough she was kneading. "You're 20 minutes late," Gloria said, hands working rhythmically over a lump of pale dough. "That means you either slept in or you're stewing. My money's on the latter." Linda set her purse on the corner table near the window, unzipping it slowly. "You'd win that bet." Gloria finally looked up. Her hair was pinned back in a loose bun, apron dusted with flour, sleeves rolled to the elbows. She wiped her hands on a dish towel and gave Linda a look that demanded the truth, not the polite version. Linda opened the manila folder, slid it across the table like it was a loaded weapon. "He's still on the deed." Gloria's eyes narrowed. "Brian." Linda nodded. "From 2009, right after Mark passed. He told me it was for protection back then. Said if anything happened, he could step in." "Step in and take what's not his," Gloria muttered, pulling up a stool beside her. Linda sighed. "I called Harold. He's looking over the papers today. Said I can file a quitclaim and remove Brian completely." Gloria didn't answer right away. Instead, she stood up, walked back behind the counter, picked up her rolling pin, and slammed it down on a fresh mound of dough with a satisfying thwack. The customer in the corner jumped in their seat. "Good," she said flatly. "Cut them out. I mean it, Linda. They don't respect you, they don't appreciate what you've built, and they damn sure don't deserve the garage." Linda gave a small laugh, but it didn't reach her eyes. "You make it sound easy." "Not easy," Gloria said, rolling again with renewed fury. "Just overdue." The bakery door chimed again, and a teenage boy walked in to grab a pastry order. Gloria waved him toward the register without pausing. Linda sat quietly for a moment, then reached into her purse and pulled out a small stack of colored folders: blue for legal, green for financial, red for personal. She opened the blue one and began organizing the deed copies, post-it notes from Harold, and forms to sign. Her hands moved quickly now, neatly, like a woman pulling threads tight on a quilt she'd been stitching for years. "I made extra copies," she said. "For Harold, for myself, and for when Brian inevitably claims I forged something." Gloria grinned. "Now that's the Linda I remember, the one who once stapled a school board budget proposal shut because they'd had enough time to read it." Linda smirked. They had. Her phone buzzed against the table. The screen lit up with Brian's name. "Brian," text message. "We should talk about getting you into something newer. I saw a great deal on a Camry. Safe, stylish, maybe less funeral home." Gloria saw the screen and didn't even try to be subtle. "Delete it." Linda didn't flinch. She just turned the phone face down. "Not responding?" Gloria asked. "No," Linda said, voice calm as polished glass. "From now on, I only respond in paperwork." The oven timer went off in the back. Gloria rose to check on a tray of cranberry scones, her eyes lingering on Linda for a beat longer than usual. "You look different," she said finally. "How so?" "Like a woman who's not asking for permission anymore." Linda folded the folder shut and slid it back into her purse. "I'm not." The elevator doors opened with a soft chime, revealing the 6th floor of the Kenmore building, where Denver's morning light bled in through frosted glass windows. Linda stepped out, her boots echoing softly down the quiet hallway. She clutched the navy blue legal folder to her chest like armor. Suite 604, Harold R. Kent, Escaron. The gold lettering on the door looked the same as it had 15 years ago. The oak still smelled faintly of lemon oil and law books. Linda knocked once, then let herself in. Harold was already standing, waiting. On time, organized, and prepared, he said, gesturing toward the chair across from his desk. God, I missed working with school secretaries. Linda cracked a smile. We do have our charm. His office was neat and minimal, just framed degrees, a Denver cityscape print, and a small metal plaque that read, "In God we trust, all others bring documents." Harold sat and slid a thick packet across the desk toward her. Quitclaim deed, affidavit of survivorship from Mark's passing, and updated property recordation. All here. Linda pulled her reading glasses from her purse and scanned the top page slowly. Her fingers didn't shake. Her mind didn't wander. She moved through the paperwork like a surgeon, one line at a time, steady and clean. No notary needed? She asked without looking up. We'll file directly with the county today. The clerk knows you. Sharon Lee. Remember her from Eastview High? Linda paused. Sharon Lee with the braces and the blue eyeliner? Harold grinned. She runs the front desk now. And yes, no braces, still blue eyeliner. Linda gave a quiet, dry laugh, then reached for the pen he'd placed beside the packet. It was a heavy brass one, smooth, cool, and far too elegant for something so simple as taking back what was hers. She didn't hesitate. One stroke, then another, then the last. Harold flipped the page and pressed a seal down with a soft click. It's done, he said, his voice reverent, like they'd just buried something, or maybe exhumed it. Linda exhaled through her nose. Not quite a sigh, more like the release of a breath held too long. Harold leaned back, folding his hands over his stomach. You know, most people hesitate at the signature. They second guess. You didn't blink. I've spent my whole life being careful, she said, meeting his eyes. That got me nowhere with them. He nodded solemnly. This gives you full legal title. Brian's name is off the record permanently. It's all yours again. She nodded back. It always was. They left the office together, rode the elevator in companionable silence, and stepped out onto the sidewalk where the morning had brightened into something crisp and alive. Harold walked her 2 blocks to the Denver County Clerk's office, past office workers and early coffee lines, where the red brick courthouse rose like a monument to every wrong she'd spent her life politely tolerating. Inside, the security guard smiled and waved her through without checking her bag. At the front desk, Sharon looked up, squinting. No way, she said, standing. Linda Carpenter? From Eastview? With the perfect cursive? Linda grinned. Still got it. Well then, Sharon said, pulling out a stamp pad. Let's make it official. Harold handed her the file. She flipped through it, nodding. Everything was in order. With a firm press of the rubber seal, she stamped the upper right corner of the top page. Clerk's office, received. September 19th, 2025, filed. The sound echoed like a final bell. Congratulations, Sharon said, sliding the papers into a secure envelope. It's yours now, clean and clear. Linda thanked her, took the envelope, and stepped out into the Colorado sun. For a long moment, she just stood on the courthouse steps. The city buzzed around her, cars honking, bus brakes hissing, heels clacking over concrete. She felt none of it, only the heartbeat in her chest, steady and certain. Then she smiled, wide and quiet. The kind of smile that wasn't for show, the kind no one else needed to see to feel. By the time Linda returned home from the clerk's office, the SUV was already there, shining in the driveway like it had just rolled off a showroom floor, jet black, chrome trim. over-polished to the point of vanity. Brian stood beside it, wearing aviators and a smug grin, leaning against the passenger door like he was waiting for cameras to show up. His shirt sleeves were rolled, showing off a watch Linda had no doubt cost more than her monthly pension. Tina perched on the passenger seat, legs crossed, sunglasses bigger than her face, flipping through something on her phone like she was too important to exist in the present moment. Linda stepped out of her car and gently closed the door. The envelope from the county clerk's office rested on the passenger seat of her sedan, sealed and silent. She walked past them both and up to the porch without a word. "Hey, Mom!" Brian called out behind her, too loudly. She turned, hand on the railing. Brian gestured toward the SUV like he'd just unveiled a piece of art. "Whatcha think? Fully loaded, third row seating, lane assist. Tina negotiated a hell of a deal." Tina didn't look up. "I told him we needed something that actually reflected our lifestyle." Linda raised an eyebrow. "You commute 12 minutes to a yoga studio." Tina smiled without warmth. "Exactly." Linda didn't answer. She pushed open the screen door and stepped inside. When she came back out a minute later, a steaming mug of Earl Grey in hand, they were still out there, now facing the garage, arms crossed, discussing paint samples. She sank into the porch chair, took a slow sip, and let the warm bergamot settle on her tongue like armor. Brian's voice drifted over the hedge. "We're thinking French doors here," he said, motioning toward the front of the garage. "You know, really open it up. Let some light in." Linda said nothing. Tina chimed in. "We could even do one of those epoxy floors. Makes it look super modern. Clean. Instagrammable. Maybe a workstation for Brian. He wants to start doing DIYs on TikTok." Brian puffed up like a peacock. "Dad garage vibes. It's a whole subgenre." Linda took another sip. Her teacup clinked gently against the saucer. "You're awful quiet," Tina said, finally turning toward her. "I'm just listening," Linda said softly. "It's a lovely performance." Brian blinked. "What? Your ideas?" she added, voice smooth as silk. "So creative. I'm sure it'll look wonderful. In a garage you actually own." That landed like a dart between the ribs. Brian's smile faltered. "What do you mean, actually own?" Linda gave him nothing. No expression, no clue. Just another sip of tea. From the sidewalk, Gloria approached, a grocery tote in one hand, scarf blowing lightly in the breeze. She stopped halfway up the drive and took in the scene. Brian and Tina gesturing toward a garage like they were pitching a show on HGTV. Linda seated on the porch with the serenity of a woman watching a parade go by, and no one realizing the baton had already passed hands. Gloria tilted her head and smirked. "Huh," she said, loud enough to carry. "Y'all making plans for something that doesn't belong to you?" Tina turned, eyes narrowing. "Excuse me?" Gloria held up a croissant from the tote. "Just saying, I don't paint other people's walls, but maybe I'm old-fashioned." Brian's jaw tensed. "It's the family garage." Gloria's eyes flicked to Linda, then back to Brian. "Is it?" Linda leaned forward, resting her elbows on her knees. "Maybe don't schedule contractors just yet." "Why not?" Brian asked, suddenly less sure of himself. She took one last sip and set the cup down gently. "No reason," she said, voice almost kind. "It's just, things are shifting." Linda sat at her dining room table, the stamped deed unfolded in front of her like a confession only she was meant to hear. The county seal was sharp, proud, and final in the top corner. Her name, hers alone, inked in clear black type. No J. Carpenter. No shared ownership. No, just in case. The sunlight filtering through the kitchen window had faded, replaced by the soft gray haze of a snow-heavy sky. Outside, the wind had shifted. Winter was settling in early this year, as if the world was preparing for something. She ran her fingers along the edge of the paper. Not like she was checking for damage, but like she wanted to feel the weight of what it meant. Control. For once, it belonged to her. And her alone. A faint knock tapped against the window, followed by a sudden whisper of white drifting down from the sky. She stood and walked to the glass door just in time to see the first flakes beginning to fall. Slow and deliberate. They caught on the dead grass and on the hood of her car, disappearing the moment they touched. But it wouldn't be long before the snow stayed. She opened the door slightly and breathed in. Cold. Clean. Possibility. Later that afternoon, Gloria practically kicked open the back entrance of the bakery, cheeks pink from the wind, a grocery bag slung over one arm and a scarf wrapped high over her ears. "You look like someone who just buried a body and made peace with God," she said, dropping the bag on the counter and pulling off her gloves. Linda was already elbow-deep in flour, a pie crust halfway rolled out. "I'm not confessing to anything until this bakes," she said without looking up. Gloria peeked into the grocery sack. "You got real butter, not margarine?" "Of course." Gloria made a low whistle. "Damn. Cold-blooded." They both laughed, really laughed, for the first time in days. The tension hadn't vanished, but something had cracked. The space between fear and freedom had widened just enough to let in light. As Linda sprinkled cinnamon across the apples, Gloria leaned on the counter. "So, you gonna tell him?" Linda shrugged. "Let him keep thinking he's center stage. I'll wait for the curtain to fall." Gloria grinned. "You've got a mean streak in you lately." Linda looked up, eyes sharp. "No, I've got a boundary in me now." That evening, back at home, the snow fell harder. The world outside her window had turned to hush gray, rooftops softened, trees frosted, and the garage sat still under a thin sheet of white, like a secret too big to speak aloud. Linda had just settled into her recliner when her phone buzzed on the armrest. Voicemail, Brian Carpenter. She stared at the notification, debating. Then she tapped play. Brian's voice came through casual and presumptive, like always. "Hey, Ma. Just checking in. Tina's out of town this weekend, so I'll swing by and park the SUV in the garage. Mind keeping it cleared out for us? You know, boxes, junk, whatever. Appreciate it." Beep. No pleasantries. No question marks. Just expectation wrapped in fake politeness. Linda didn't save the message. She didn't respond. She simply deleted it, dropped the phone face down on the coffee table, and went back to peeling a fresh apple for the second pie she was planning to bring Gloria tomorrow. The snow tapped steadily at the windows now, soft and constant. The streetlights glowed dim in the haze, casting golden pools over the driveway where her own car sat. Old, but clean, proud beneath the snow. She hummed to herself as she worked, an old tune she used to sing when Brian was little, back when he still said, "please," back when things were simpler. There was flour in the air, butter under her fingernails, and something sharper than contentment humming beneath her skin. It was power. It was peace. It was hers. Sunday morning came quiet and slow, the kind of day that asked for thick socks, black coffee, and no sudden movements. Outside, Denver had turned white overnight. Rooftops buried, cars dusted, sidewalks swallowed in silence. Linda sat at her kitchen table with a blanket draped over her shoulders, her phone resting face up beside her half-full mug. The smell of cinnamon from yesterday's leftover pie still lingered faintly in the air. She wasn't looking for it. Not really. But the push notification blinked anyway. Tina Carpenter just posted a photo. Linda swiped it open with one finger. There it was. The black SUV parked at an angle in front of the garage, the snow brushed off with calculated care, as though someone had spent more time posing the shot than actually warming the car. The caption read, "Nothing like waking up to our beautiful family home. Blessed to be making smart investments and building future equity. She home upgrade. She garage goals. Stich married. Well. Linda stared at the words for a moment longer than she meant to. It was the hashtags that did it. Not the house. Not the SUV. The smugness tucked into every word like it belonged on a billboard. She scrolled down. A few likes from mutual acquaintances. A comment from Tina's sister. That garage is huge. So glad you guys locked that down early. And then another message. This one in Linda's inbox. A cousin in Nebraska she hadn't spoken to in 2 years. Hey Linda, saw Tina's post. Didn't know you signed the garage over to them. That true? Another message. Then another. Family members who never called suddenly felt entitled to a front row seat. Linda didn't get angry. She didn't draft a reply and delete it. She didn't even sigh. She simply typed back to each one. We'll see. Then she closed the app. From the front porch, a quiet knock. It wasn't Brian. It was Gloria. With a brown paper bag, 2 thermoses, and that same wry expression she always wore when someone had said something particularly stupid online. She stepped inside, brushing snow from her boots. Well, I just saw Tina's attempt at real estate cosplay. Bless her heart. She thinks a hashtag is a deed. Linda chuckled, already reaching for 2 mugs. I had family asking if I gave them the garage. Gloria snorted. They think you'd give Brian anything besides heartburn? I said, we'll see. You, Gloria said, pointing with a mittened finger, are officially my villain origin story. They settled by the window with their drinks, steam curling upward into the cold kitchen light. Outside, the SUV remained parked like it belonged there. Linda said nothing. She sipped her coffee slowly, watching her breath fog the glass. After Gloria left, Linda pulled on her coat and stepped into the snow-covered driveway, where her silver sedan sat half buried in white. She took out a soft bristle brush and a bottle of polish from the garage. The real garage. The one with her name on the deed and no apology attached. She started at the hood, gentle, methodical strokes. Each pass revealed more shine, more silver, more memory. It wasn't just about keeping it clean. It was about claiming space. They could throw hashtags and throwbacks all they wanted. She had facts, ink, history, time. Her phone buzzed again as she worked. A new email. From Harold Kent. Subject, deed filing, confirmed Linda. Just got word back from the county. The deed filing is finalized and fully recorded in your name. All legal interest in the property is solely yours. H. She didn't smile. She didn't need to. The confirmation wasn't a surprise. It was a seal on a decision that had already taken root and grown its own spine. She polished the rear bumper until her reflection stared back at her. Older, yes, but clearer. Solid. Then, from inside the house, her phone rang again. She didn't recognize the number. Linda had just finished folding the last dish towel when the front door swung open like it had been kicked. Brian burst in, cheeks flushed from the cold, snowflakes clinging to his coat, and a bottle of cheap sparkling wine held high like a trophy. Guess who closed on a refinance and is feeling generous? He bellowed. Behind him, Tina swept in with the confidence of a woman entering a spa she didn't plan to pay for. Her heels clicked on the hardwood, sunglasses still perched on her head despite the snowfall, and she carried a small Bluetooth speaker already pulsing low with bass-heavy pop music. We brought bubbles, she announced, placing the speaker on the console table like it belonged there. Time to toast the new chapter. Linda blinked once. She didn't flinch. She didn't rise from the armchair. She simply reached over and turned the music off. Brian didn't notice. He was already in the kitchen, opening cabinets like he lived there. We thought we'd beat the storm and celebrate early. Big plans, Ma. Got a call from a contractor friend. Says he can swing by next week. Garage is gonna look incredible. Linda stood slowly, smoothing her sweater. Hope you're okay with champagne flutes? Tina added, finally shedding her coat and draping it across the back of the sofa like it was a chaise lounge. Linda didn't respond. She moved to the kitchen table instead, picking up a cloth napkin and laying it neatly beside a teacup. Brian pulled out 3 glasses with a clatter, already half grinning. This is gonna be good for all of us. Property value's gonna jump. Curb appeal. Family legacy, you know. Linda looked at him like she was waiting for him to hear himself. I brought extra copies of our Pinterest board, Tina added with mock sincerity. Garage vision is so important. You'll see. Do you two even hear yourselves? Linda asked calmly. Brian poured a splash of the wine, fizzing over slightly. What do you mean? She leaned on the edge of the table, one hand resting on the wood like anchoring herself. You're talking like you own something you don't. Tina scoffed. Brian's name was always on the paperwork. Linda gave a slow nod. It was. Brian stopped mid-pour. What? She walked to the sideboard, opened a drawer, and pulled out a large white envelope, the same one that had rested on her passenger seat, the one Harold had handed her, the one Sharon had stamped. She set it on the table with precision. What's this? Brian asked, voice dipping into a register she hadn't heard since he was caught lying about a speeding ticket in high school. Linda opened the envelope, pulled out the deed, and unfolded it one quiet page at a time. The county seal gleamed at the top. Property title, she said evenly, tapping the header. Tina stepped closer, eyes narrowing. Where's Brian's name? Linda looked at her. Not cold, not cruel, just final. It's not there. Brian's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Tina let out a short, sharp laugh. This some kind of scare tactic? That's not funny. It's not supposed to be funny, Linda said, folding the deed and sliding it back into the envelope. It's supposed to be accurate. I was co-owner, Brian snapped. You can't just... I could, Linda interrupted, her voice steel. And I did. Harold walked me through it. Sharon filed it herself. Everything's legal, final, public record. Tina's face paled, lips twitching. Brian ran a hand through his hair. You blindsided me. You embarrassed me, Linda said, her voice low. You made jokes. Posted pictures. Mocked the car I've kept running longer than your last 2 jobs combined. You treated me like a footnote. But this house, this garage, I built it. I maintained it. I paid the taxes. You slapped your name on a deed I let you hold during a grief I hadn't even processed. The room fell still. Even the ticking wall clock seemed to hesitate. Then, knock knock. All 3 heads turned. The front door. A silhouette through the frosted glass. Gloria, holding a pie. Gloria stepped in without waiting to be invited, snow dusting the shoulders of her coat and a steaming apple pie balanced confidently in one hand. Hope I'm not too early, she said, glancing between Brian's red face and Tina's stunned expression. Looks like dessert showed up just in time for the main course. Brian stood frozen, eyes locked on the county seal still visible at the top of the deed. The silence between the 3 of them thickened like syrup. Linda slid the document a few inches closer to him. You want to read it again? Or would you prefer Harold explain it to you slowly over speakerphone? Brian blinked, as if waking from a dream. This isn't how any of this works. You can't just take my name off the property like it's a typo. Gloria, still holding the pie, chuckled softly. Sweetheart, if you didn't put any money in the pot, you don't get to cry when someone else eats the stew. Tina's voice came sharp. This is fraud. No, Linda said, calm as glass. This is a quitclaim deed, filed with the county, fully notarized. It's public record now. And Harold made sure every line was airtight. You were never an owner, Brian. You were a name on a convenience clause from 15 years ago. one I had every right to revoke. Brian's jaw clenched. I signed that deed to help you. You signed it to feel important, Linda replied, her voice lowering an octave. And because I was grieving and tired and didn't see it coming. Tina snatched the envelope off the table and flipped through the pages with snapping fingers. We'll fight this. I don't care how old and smug your attorney is. We'll fight it. Gloria set the pie down gently on the counter, then leaned back against the fridge. And we'll send popcorn to the courtroom. Linda folded her arms. You're welcome to try, but you won't win. Brian looked at her. Really looked at her. For the first time in weeks. And what he saw wasn't the woman he was used to rolling his eyes at. It wasn't the secretary with gentle hands and too much grace. It was something steadier, more dangerous. A woman who'd stopped asking for permission. You seriously did this behind my back? He said, quieter now, but raw with disbelief. I didn't do it behind your back, she replied. You were too busy looking in the mirror to notice. Tina stepped forward again. This isn't over. It is, Linda said, eyes sharp. Unless you want it to get uglier. Brian's face flushed again. I don't believe this. Then get your facts up to speed, Gloria muttered, biting into a piece of crust with zero ceremony. This ain't Monopoly. This is real property law, honey. Linda didn't gloat. She didn't smirk. She simply picked up the teacup Brian had poured earlier, poured its contents into the sink, and set the empty glass down beside the pie. Do you need help finding the door? She asked softly. Or have you memorized the floor plan of the house you keep pretending you own? Brian stood there for another second, just one, then turned sharply toward the coat rack. Tina hissed, You're going to regret this. Linda stepped forward once, stopping just short of her. I regret a lot of things. Keeping you both around this long tops the list. Brian yanked the front door open, wind sweeping in with a burst of snow and cold that rushed through the room. Don't bother locking it behind you, Linda added. The garage keypad's been changed. His eyes flared. She didn't flinch. The snow fell thicker the next morning, muting the street and frosting the windows like a seasonal ceasefire. Linda sat curled in her armchair, hands wrapped around a warm mug of cocoa, the kind with too many mini marshmallows and not enough guilt. The house was quiet except for the soft crackle of the fireplace and the occasional creak of old wood adjusting to the cold. Her phone rang. She didn't check the screen. She already knew the number. Harold, she answered, voice steady. You sleeping in a crown yet? He asked. Close, she said, smiling into the rim of her cup. Well, you can keep your robe on for this call. I heard from their attorney's office this morning. Or, I should say, someone pretending to be one. I told them to read the deed and call back when they learn how property law works. Linda let out a short breath. They actually tried? Oh, they talked about trying. That's about it. No standing, no contract, no money exchanged, no improvements made. Brian has no legal leg to stand on, unless he wants to sue you for emotional damage. Linda chuckled. That would be ironic. Harold's voice softened. It's done, Linz. You're clear. You're clean. And frankly, you're bulletproof. She looked toward the window where the garage sat blanketed in snow, undisturbed. Then I'll stop checking the locks. Harold hesitated before he spoke again. You did the right thing. I know. After they hung up, she didn't move. She just sipped the last of the cocoa. The marshmallows melted into a soft swirl, and felt her body relax in a way it hadn't in months. Across town, Tina was not relaxing. Her Instagram stories were filled with cryptic white text on black slides. Some people will betray their own blood over a piece of property. Truth hurts. Keep watching. We're not done. Nothing's uglier than a bitter woman with a signature. Linda didn't comment, didn't even open the app. Gloria screenshot every post and sent them directly to her, along with her own brand of commentary. Gloria. This is better than Netflix. I'm calling it The Real Housewives of Entitlement County. Linda. She always had a flair for fiction. Gloria. And you always had receipts. Sip slow, Queen. The SUV had disappeared from the driveway the night before, tires spinning slightly as Brian backed out too fast, nearly clipping the mailbox. Linda hadn't watched. She'd simply stood at the sink rinsing her pie dish, the kitchen warm, the silence louder than the engine. Now, with the snow continuing to fall, the space looked peaceful again. Not empty, just hers. The garage sat sealed, the keypad untouched, no new codes shared. She reached into the drawer beside her and pulled out the remote starter for her sedan, pressing the button with a small, satisfied click. Out in the drive, the engine rumbled to life beneath a soft pillow of white. Still running. Still hers. Still enough. Her phone buzzed again. Gloria this time. Gloria. Tina just posted another one. You may have the keys, but I've got the screenshots. Girl thinks she's launching a legal case on Canva. Linda laughed, deep and real. Let her. Outside, the snow began to glitter as the morning sun peeked through the clouds, illuminating the quiet suburban street with a soft golden haze. No contractors, no drama, just stillness. She walked to the front door, opened it slowly, and breathed in. Cold, bright, unbothered. It started with the crunch of tires on compact snow and the dull slam of a car door. Linda had just finished loading the dryer with fresh linens when she heard it. She looked up through the frost-rimmed kitchen window in time to see Brian in the driveway, back hunched, hauling two large plastic storage bins from the trunk of his SUV. He was bundled like a man preparing for a long winter, but the quick, sharp jerks of his movements gave him away. This wasn't a casual stop. This was an incursion. He dropped one bin in front of the garage door and returned for a third. Linda set the laundry basket down. Outside, the wind had picked up. Snow flurried around Brian's boots as he popped open the rear hatch, revealing more bins stacked high, labeled in thick black Sharpie. Tools, garage, holiday, decor. Dad's stuff, keep. Linda stepped outside just as he began dragging one of them toward the keypad. Don't, she said. Brian didn't look up. I just need some space until we sort all this out. There's nothing to sort. He ignored her, punching in numbers. The keypad blinked red. Beep. Error. He tried again. Beep. Again. Linda walked down the porch steps, slow and steady, stopping between him and the garage. You changed the code, he said, blinking against the wind. I told you I did. He stood there for a beat, box still in his arms, eyes narrowing. This is ridiculous. No, she said. What's ridiculous is assuming you can store your mess in something that doesn't belong to you. He dropped the box onto the snowy drive, plastic snapping against ice. It's my father's garage, my inheritance. Linda's voice was cool and quiet. Then you should have treated it with more respect when he was alive. From the corner of her eye, she saw a curtain shift across the street. Then another. Doors cracking open. A figure in a parka stepping onto their stoop. The neighborhood was watching. Linda didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Brian bent down, grabbed another bin, and stomped past her, aiming for the side entrance. No, she said again, this time stepping directly into his path. He stopped inches from her, breath heavy, jaw tight. You're making a scene, he muttered. You're making a mistake. A soft ding echoed across the cold. Linda turned slightly. Gloria stood at the curb, phone held high, the red record button glowing in the corner of her screen. Smile, sweetheart, she called. You're on Civic Standoff, Suburban Edition. Brian turned redder than the tips of his ears. You think this is funny? No, Gloria said, zooming in. I think it's documented. From behind them, flashing lights. A black and white Denver PD cruiser rolled slowly onto the street, tires cracking through frozen slush. Someone had called. Probably not just someone. 2 officers stepped out. Everything okay here? Linda raised a hand calmly. This man is attempting to access a garage he does not own. I have the deed inside, filed and stamped by the county. Brian barked a laugh. I'm her son. One officer nodded. Sure, but if she's the legal owner, you're gonna need permission. You can't be serious. Actually, we are. The second officer cut in. This is a private property matter, and right now, sir, you're trespassing. Brian stepped back, incredulous. I'm not trespassing. I'm moving into something I own. Gloria whispered under her breath. This is better than Judge Judy. Linda turned toward the officer, calm as ever. I'll grab the papers. It didn't take long. 10 minutes later, Brian was loading the same bins back into his SUV, jaw clenched, silent. The officers stood to the side, expressionless. Tina wasn't with him this time. Maybe that was smarter. Linda stood by the porch rail watching. You humiliated me, Brian muttered as he passed. No, she said. You did that all by yourself? The air outside Harold Kent's office carried that dry, biting cold that only came after a week of snow. The sun had returned, but it offered no warmth, just a brittle silver light that cast long shadows across downtown Denver. Linda walked with her hands tucked into leather gloves, a folder under one arm, and a decision she no longer felt guilty about. Harold met her at the door, holding it open with a lawyer's courtesy but a friend's pride. I cleared the calendar, he said. Didn't figure you'd want anyone else in the waiting room for this. I appreciate that, she said. Inside, the office smelled of coffee, oak polish, and a faint trace of Harold's peppermint throat lozenges. The same law book sat on the same shelf. The same Denver skyline print hung behind his desk. But something in the room felt different today. Final. Harold sat with a legal pad and a stack of crisp papers already waiting. I drafted 2 options, he said, adjusting his glasses. One with Brian as a conditional beneficiary, one without. Linda didn't even glance at the first stack. Strike him out entirely, she said. No room for ambiguity. Harold nodded, flipped to the second document, and turned it toward her. And you're sure? He asked, pen poised. I'm sure. She leaned forward, eyes scanning the lines with quiet intensity. Brian's name was nowhere, not on the house, not on the garage, not on her future. Instead, a new line appeared under beneficiaries. Gloria E. Myers, lifelong friend and the Carpenter Fund. Annual vocational scholarship for auto repair students, Denver Community College. Harold cleared his throat. I added the scholarship clause the way you asked. 50% of remaining estate value, held in trust, renewable every spring semester. Linda's smile came slowly, like the sun inching past a cloud. Mark would have liked that. He always said real skill was worth more than status. Harold handed her the pen. Then let's make it official. She signed, not with hesitation, not with regret, but with the weightless certainty of a woman who had just dropped the final bag from her back after carrying it too long. Gloria arrived just as they were finishing. She stomped the snow off her boots in the entryway and entered the office in her usual whirl, scarf askew, cheeks red, voice louder than decorum allowed. I brought cookies, she said, holding up a paper bag, in case we were burying a legacy. Harold raised an eyebrow. Technically, we're drafting a new one. Gloria turned to Linda, who gestured toward the signature line. You're the witness, Linda said. I figured you've been here for all the other parts. Might as well be here for this. Gloria stared at the paper, then at Linda, then back at the paper. Her voice was unusually quiet. You're putting me in? You've always been in, Linda said. This just makes it legal. Harold pushed the document toward her, and Gloria signed with slightly trembling hands. I don't know what to say, she murmured, blinking quickly. Linda reached over and squeezed her wrist gently. Then don't say anything. Just help me spend the rest of it well. They left the office together not long after, stepping into a patch of sunlight that lit up the sidewalk like a stage. Snow still clung to rooftops and gutters, but the worst had passed. Linda tilted her face to the sky, breathed in the clean, cold air, and exhaled like someone finally done holding back. No tension in her shoulders, no storm waiting at the edge of the day. Just clarity. The call came just after sunset. Linda was in the kitchen, gently setting out 2 mugs for cocoa. Gloria was due over soon. She always came by on Mondays after closing the bakery, claiming it smelled like carbs and capitalism and needed detoxing by Linda's fireplace. The phone buzzed once, then again. Tina. Linda stared at the screen, her thumb hovering. She hadn't heard Tina's voice since the last time it was raised in her living room, threatening lawsuits she didn't understand and making Pinterest promises she couldn't keep. Still, Linda answered. There was no greeting, just a shaky inhale. Linda. The voice was thin, strained, not clipped, not sharp, just frayed at the edges. I need to talk to you. Linda didn't reply. I know things got bad, Tina continued, but Brian's going through it right now. The refinance didn't go through. We're behind on the second car. Credit's tight. He's applying for jobs again. We just need time. Still, Linda said nothing. Tina's voice cracked. If there's anything you can do, just maybe leave him something. In the will, or talk to Harold. He doesn't have to know. It could be private, quiet, like an account. Like an apology you don't have to say out loud. Linda inhaled slowly, closed her eyes, and hung up. Just like that. No sound, no drama, no goodbyes. She set the phone down on the counter, calmly reached for the cocoa tins, and added an extra spoonful of sugar to Gloria's cup. 10 minutes later, the door opened and Gloria stepped in, boots thudding gently against the entry rug. I brought gingerbread, she called out, holding up a tin. Don't judge me. It's ugly as sin, but it's got personality. Linda turned from the stove and smiled. Perfect. They settled into the living room, cocoa in hand, fire glowing low behind the mesh screen. Gloria leaned into the cushions with a satisfied sigh. So, how's the day been? Peaceful? Boring? Linda hesitated, then nodded. Almost. She reached down beside the couch and lifted a folder onto her lap. Inside were donation documents, bank authorization forms, a drafted letter to the Denver Community College Foundation. Gloria leaned over to peek. Is this? Linda handed her the letter. Gloria read it slowly. When she finished, her eyes lingered on the scholarship name, the Carpenter Fund, Vocational Training for Women in Auto Mechanics. You didn't just start the fund, she whispered. You expanded it. Linda nodded. 50,000 to start. More when the estate finalizes. Full tuition, tools, everything they'll need to learn without begging a man for parts or space. Gloria looked at her like she was seeing something holy. Then she reached across the cushions and hugged Linda, tight and wordless. When Gloria left, Linda stood at the window for a long while, watching the streetlights blink on one by one. The snow had stopped. The clouds were clearing. It was the kind of night where everything felt freshly erased. She stepped into her coat and boots, walked out to the driveway, and uncovered the silver sedan one soft layer at a time. She worked slowly, brushing snow from the roof, the windshield, the hood. Her breath fogged in front of her. Her fingers tingled through her gloves. The garage sat to her left, sealed tight, untouched, and still entirely hers. The car gleamed beneath the porch light, not flashy, not new, but steady, familiar. Her fingers lingered on the hood ornament like a signature she finally understood. The news arrived the way news always does in quiet neighborhoods, half whispered, half watched, and 100% true. Brian Carpenter had filed for Chapter 13 bankruptcy. Gloria heard it first, of course. She always did. She came knocking one Thursday morning, flowers still on her sleeves and a half loaf of braided cinnamon bread tucked under her arm. "Brought you carbs and gossip," she said with a grin. "But mostly carbs." Linda smiled and stepped aside. "Kitchen's warm." They sat at the table as steam rose from a fresh pot of tea. The bread was still warm, soft in the center, crisp on the edge. Gloria tore a piece with her fingers and leaned in. "He listed everything," she said. "The SUV, the condo, the gym membership. Hell, even the espresso machine. Guess how much equity he had left in any of it?" Linda didn't guess. Gloria answered anyway. "Negative 78 grand. I mean, how do you even do that without buying a yacht?" Linda sipped her tea. Gloria continued. "Tina's gone. Left last weekend. Supposedly moved back to her sister's place in Tucson. Brian's staying in a rental out by the industrial park. Probably blames everyone but himself." Linda said nothing, but her eyes were steady. Gloria studied her a moment, then softened. "You don't have to say it." "I don't want to say it," Linda replied quietly. "That's the difference." Later, after Gloria left with a second slice of bread wrapped in foil, Linda pulled on her gloves and stepped into the garage. No music, no noise, just the gentle echo of her footsteps on the clean concrete floor. Everything inside had its place now: shelves lined with labeled bins, a small pegboard holding Mark's old wrenches, polished, preserved, a narrow workbench, newly sanded, free of dust. And in the corner, the black and white photo of the first car they ever bought together, framed at last. She swept the floor slowly, methodically, pausing only when a breeze rustled the ivy along the far window. Then she hummed. Not a song from the radio, not something poppy or ironic. It was the lullaby she used to sing when Brian was a boy. He never remembered it. But she did. Every note. By noon, the mail arrived. Bills, a flyer for gutter cleaning, and one thick envelope with a return address stamped in clean block letters: Denver Community College Foundation. She sat back down at the kitchen table and opened it with her letter opener. Mark's, still sharp, still solid in the grip. Inside was a typed letter. No form letter, no template. Just 2 paragraphs. "Dear Ms. Carpenter, we're honored to accept your generous gift and to establish the Carpenter Fund in our vocational program. Your donation will cover tuition, materials, and certification fees for multiple students in the coming year, with special priority given to young women entering the auto repair field. The impact of your gift is already being felt. One of our incoming students, Kayla R., wrote this when she was told she'd be fully funded. I can finally tell my brothers I'm going to fix their damn cars and charge them. Thank you for believing in real work, in second chances, and in futures built by hand." Linda read it twice, then folded it, slowly, and tucked it into the side of her bookshelf, between an old PTA agenda and a faded photo of her and Mark standing in front of the original garage doors. The next morning, she woke to light snow and pale sun breaking through the trees. She put on her softest sweater, filled a thermos with coffee, and walked out into the driveway. The sedan gleamed. The garage stood quiet and proud behind her. No SUV, no shouting, no borrowed legacy, just space, just peace, just hers. She stood still for a long time, sipping slowly, steam rising like forgiveness into the cold morning air. And then she turned, smiling softly, and opened the garage door. Ready. The snow had come again overnight, light and crisp, like a final coat of paint on a finished canvas. Linda stepped out onto the driveway just after sunrise, gloved hands wrapped around a soft bristled brush, thermos tucked under one arm. The silver sedan sat where it always had, loyal as ever, waiting beneath a gentle frosting of white. She didn't rush. She never did anymore. With quiet, rhythmic strokes, she cleared the windshield first, then the mirrors, then the hood. The world was still soft with sleep. No traffic yet, just the sound of snow shifting beneath boots and the far-off caw of a crow overhead. The garage stood behind her, doors sealed, ivy curling at the corners like punctuation. Inside, everything was exactly where it belonged, and outside, everything was exactly as it should be. She took a deep breath of the sharp Colorado air, clean and cold, the kind that reminded you of what it felt like to earn a moment instead of inherit one. Across the street, Gloria's porch light flicked on. A moment later, the door opened, and there she was. Coat flapping open, mismatched mittens, hair in a loose braid that had definitely not seen a brush this morning. She held up a mug with both hands and grinned. "You waxing it or marrying it?" Linda called back. "That depends. Did your bread rise this time, or do I have to be polite about it again?" Gloria flipped her off with the gentleness of old women who'd seen too much to take offense. "Come over later. I made the ugly one first so you wouldn't feel intimidated." Linda laughed. "Deal." By the time she went back inside, a light trail of boot prints followed her into the kitchen. She set her thermos on the counter, peeled off her gloves, and opened the mail pile still sitting near the fruit bowl. Credit card ads, a coupon for tires, and one red envelope. Harold. She slit the top open with the edge of a spoon and pulled out a thick holiday card. Gold-embossed letters on the front read, "Some seasons come late, but they still come." Inside, his familiar looping script, "Linda. This year, you gave yourself back to yourself. May next year be lighter still. Harold." She placed the card on the fridge, right beneath the magnet from the community college that held up the scholarship newsletter. She hadn't planned to save them, those emails, those updates. But she found herself reading every word. The most recent one arrived last week and ended like this. "The Carpenter Fund continues to lift students from shop floors to full careers. We thank you again for building something more permanent than any garage could ever hold." Linda traced the line with one fingertip. Permanent. That was the thing no one told you about standing your ground. It didn't just hold things steady, it let them grow. She poured the rest of the thermos into her favorite mug and stepped onto the back porch, letting the rising sun catch the side of the garage. A soft gleam reflected from the metal handle. No locks had been changed since the incident. No cameras installed. No signs put up. She didn't need to guard what was hers. She simply lived in it. The piece wasn't performative. It didn't come with hashtags or announcements. It came in moments like this, breathing cold air with nothing owed and no one left to impress. Gloria texted just then. "Gloria, bread's edible. I'd rate it a 6.5, but I'm bringing whipped butter, so that's cheating." Linda, "You bring butter, I'll bring backup cocoa." Gloria, "Damn right, we're not amateurs anymore." Linda smiled as she tucked the phone away. Then she looked out over the driveway, where her sedan caught the morning light just so. It wasn't much, not a status symbol, not a showroom queen, but it ran. It carried. It stayed. She took another sip of cocoa, let the warmth fill her chest, and thought about all the things people had told her weren't worth keeping: her patience, her voice, her grief, her home. And now, they were gone, and she had everything they thought they were owed. Her fingers brushed the hood of the sedan again, slow and proud. Then, without bitterness, without malice, just truth, she said aloud to no one in particular. They laughed at my old car, but I drove off with my freedom and sold their roof right out from under them.